The famous words, folks. Another Tuesday, another pod, and I got Jack in the stew. First time together in 2 weeks after last week's pre-recorded episode.
Yes, sir.
Good to see you
Feels
again.
like ages.
Feels like ages. Since then, the Lions have won 2 games. Life is so good.
It's so good.
Life is so
complain.
good. And going to be a good pod today. Going to be covering all things NLDS, of course. An absolute thrilling series. Going to have Dallas Allen join us. Some overreactions from Jack and I.
A little bit.
Little new segment we're kind of troubleshooting. A lot of new segments we want to try for you guys. So we're going to go into some overreactions today. Talk about the retirement of Schema. And, of course, the comment of the week. Without further ado, this is the Pipe It Up Podcast. Cue the intro. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Pipe It Up Podcast, the official podcast of MLW Wiffle Ball. Jack, we will have a new champ in 2023.
Yeah,
Can you believe
it's about time. About time, man. We're due for someone new on the throne.
We are due for someone new. I wouldn't say that I saw it coming, though. As you guys saw in our predictions a couple weeks ago,
none of us got it right.
All three of us got it wrong. Well, how can you pick against Jimmy?
Which I know, but which makes us look so bad because the whole reason we did that was because didn't we end up not picking both of the teams that made it to the World Series?
Much. It almost seems rigged because none of us picked the D-backs, but I didn't. I dated it.
Eagles.
You guys saw
none
the
of us
date
picked
on
the
top.
Eagles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you can't pick against Jimmy Knorp in the playoffs. You just can't based on what we've seen.
No.
That was Jimmy's first postseason loss as, like, the Diamondbacks manager. He was drafted in 2020, debuted that year, was sort of a role player at first, and then as the year went on, got more and more and more involved.
Mm-hmm.
But his first kind of year as Jimmy Knorp, like, star player of the D-backs, manager of the team, was 2021. And he had not lost a postseason series since then. So this was his first ever postseason loss as the Knorp as we know him. You know?
Wow.
And so, how do you pick against him? It's like picking against Brady in the
you
playoffs
can't.
when
You'd
Brady
be a
was
fool.
quarterback. Yeah, you'd be a fool. It's just you can't bet on that happening. But Eagles capitalized. I wouldn't say Knorp had his best day. And what a way to start. I mean, what a way to start.
I know. I mean, the Eagles, they really, I feel like just came out. I mean, we can get into the games like individually, but I think just throughout the series were very consistent and didn't necessarily make like a bunch of incredible plays, but they were just overall, the more consistent team and made a couple more plays when they needed to.
Yeah, when the word got around the league amongst players who weren't at the game that the D-backs had lost, everyone was like, what happened? How did it go down? And I was like, it's hard to describe. It wasn't like there was some big moments late in games that decided this one. It was more so teams took the lead early, and then it was a pitcher's duel the rest of the way.
Yeah,
and the
really
way that teams took the lead wasn't from some big clutch home run. It was like a scrappy run that was manufactured one way or another, whether it was sloppy defense or a RBI single, a bases loaded walk, like the things just happened, and all of a sudden you look at the scoreboard and there was a team that was out front, and then it just stayed that way. It was very weird and just very much so a duel, but it almost felt like it didn't have the typical MLW endings we're used to seeing in the playoffs, so it was weird.
Yeah, there was nothing like super crazy.
Yeah,
but a good close series nonetheless, and
it reminded me a lot of postseason baseball, to be honest.
I mean, there were chances for fireworks, like in game one. I mean, the way game one ended was with Jimmy popping up. Yep. And that's like, I mean, you look back on it and it's just crazy because he's hit that same pitch for a home run so many times, and that would have done it.
Yeah, that game one finale was awesome. So the Eagles scored in the second inning in game one. It was a Landon sac fly in foul territory that got the run in just barely. Jonah's throw was a little bit wild. And then Dallas hit a homer in the second to make it 2-0, and that was the score heading to the third.
Yeah.
But we've seen this before. Last year in the World Series in Game 2, it was the Cobras up by 2 against the D-backs, and Knorp was at the plate. And what happened in that situation? Walk-off 3-run shot.
Yep.
So Dallas could have walked Jimmy to load the bases. That would have been pretty bold.
Yeah.
I mean, but given with how clutch he's been, I got a lot of respect for Dallas for going at him like that.
Oh, I agree. I think, it's like, why not take the opportunity to slay the dragon or slay the king? You know what I mean?
Anyone who's tried in the past has wound up dead.
But you got it. I don't know. I was happy to see Dallas do that.
I think, you want to win knowing, I defeated this person. Right. I avoided him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I think Jimmy's the same way.
For sure.
He wouldn't want to just be walked, obviously.
No. But I'm sure it crossed everybody's mind. The Eagles had a discussion about it. Kyle showed the clip of Dallas saying, I'm going to go at him.
Definitely, yeah.
And Jimmy just missed it. That would have won the game. So moments like that.
It was there for sure.
It was there. But I have a lot of respect for Dallas for going at him. And big momentum win for sure. I know the Eagles led that series last year, and then they had the shocking comeback. But to see them come out there and win the first game, it was like, all right, maybe
huge.
They might do it this year.
Shut them out, too.
Yeah, sure.
Very, very good performance.
Phenomenal performance. Dallas pitched great. Seemed very level-headed. You could tell.
He had a home run, too, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. It was a great performance. I mean, he led the squad there. True leader. I think the experience from last year definitely showed. They seemed a lot more cool, calm, and collected. The vibe at the Meadows as a whole, I think, felt more like regular season and less like playoffs. I think because, we're going to a cool venue and doing this cool thing, but that was the same case as last year. So, last year, the intensity was so crazy, but now those two teams both have experience playing for something really big like that. So, I think people are more
and I think it helped,
acclimated to it.
I think it helped the Eagles, just like it helps, most teams kind of playing as the underdog, right? Mm-hmm. Like playing with the crowd, the fans, not really having the expectations for you to win. You know what I mean? Like you're going out there with really nothing to lose. Versus last year, they had such a hot start to the season, mm-hmm. and we're getting so you could say overhyped, I guess, with how it ended. And I feel like they felt like they needed to perform at like a certain level and weren't hitting it, but they kind of came into this series and it seemed like they were just going to be themselves. They were going to be loose. Yeah. And Dallas, obviously seemed confident, and huge start for them to get that game 1 win.
They did. And I think I talked to Jim not Jim. I talked to Dan, I think, beforehand. It may have been at the Cobras Predators series. I don't remember, but he talked to me and I asked him how he felt. And he's like, he said he felt confident going into it, that he thought they could do it. And Jim sat in this chair back on that podcast we uploaded last week and said how he felt the pressure and all the stuff from the fans about how they're expected to win these games, Yeah. So I think that takes a toll.
Yeah, I agree. I think you could almost see it at times, conversely, in the video where the Diamondbacks, like, you could tell that they just have they have high expectations of themselves too. Mm-hmm. But it was almost just like, the fans, everyone, we expected them to win. Like
you can't not.
You can't not.
Jimmy's been so good, and so has the rest of their team. Jonah, Schema, they've all been there before.
Yeah. And
it seems like they always find a way. But that wasn't the case in game 1, and it wasn't that case in the series. But moving into game 2 a little bit, we saw Blade Walker immediately take the mound and start warming up after that first game. So I wonder if that was a predetermined move or not. We're going to have Dallas Allen on in a little bit, and I want to ask him that exact question. But he takes the mound, starts getting loose, and that's bold. You could have put Dallas out there to win the series, and he was pitching very good. Instead, they go to Blade. They go to the number 2, a guy who's never pitched in the playoffs, a guy who's brand new to pitching. They put him out there, and in the first inning, gets out of a huge jam.
Loads him up.
Yeah, loads him up, and then strikes out 2.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So I think that gave him a ton of confidence, and I was just impressed.
I'm interested to see what Dallas has to say about that decision. Mm-hmm. I'd be really shocked if he said that Blade was going to start regardless of the outcome in game 1.
It's so hard to do that.
I would be really shocked. But also, if that is the case, impressed with Dan's confidence in Blade. Mm-hmm. I think he's definitely earned it. He's shown that he's very capable on the mound, but just against such a veteran team like the Diamondbacks, you wouldn't think that they would really struggle with his type of pitching, his type of stuff, because it's not like he has a ton of stuff in his arsenal. Mm-hmm. Pretty like we've compared, Nick Saylor, kind of that just like second pitcher off speed kind of guy. Not a ton of movement, but like tries to locate. I mean, hats off to Blade for being able to, even though they lost the game, it's like he still only let up 1 run.
Yeah, he pitched very well. And a couple things about that. Number 1 is I wonder if me talking about it or Jimmy doing it last year where he went to Jonah against us in that NLCS inspired that move at all. Also, the Eagles lost the series last year where they kind of tried to go with Dallas the whole time. Didn't work out for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that factored into the decision. I'm also shocked that because of the same reasons that Jimmy didn't go to Flood here. I know it'd be hard to go to Flood. I wonder if the D-backs had won the first game if Trey would have got the shot.
Yeah.
But Trey pitched very good this year. He started the All-Star game. In his opportunities, he was great. He shut out the Eagles rather in Detroit in that second game. So I'm sure he was maybe frustrated. I don't know if him and Jimmy had a conversation about it, but it would be tough to go to Flood, I think, when you're down 1-0 versus up 1-0. But still, given that information, I'm surprised Jimmy didn't. After seeing Blade go out, I'm surprised Jimmy didn't give it a shot with Trey.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. But that's a good point there. My thought process for a guy like Jimmy is like just being the face of that team, and like your team starts, down a game in the series. Yeah, kind of hard to hand it over.
Very much so.
Because even if they did lose that game too, I guess in Jimmy's mind, he could own that. You know what I mean? Versus like throwing Trey out there, and let's say Trey wasn't able to get the job done, and then I think we would look back on that and be like, hey, what were you thinking there? You know what I mean? So
if you get eliminated with Jimmy Knorp on the bench, it's like, what was the thought process?
Exactly.
But if Trey goes out there and wins it, you look like a genius.
Right.
So it can definitely bite you in the butt. But talking about it with you for 2 minutes now, I think you're probably right. You can't go home with Knorp on the bench.
Yeah, it'd be tough.
But it's just tough. That's why winning game 1 is so crucial. It really is in a 3-game series.
Right.
And I do think that probably played a factor in the Eagles starting to get better and better against Knorp the more they saw him inning after inning in this series. I made a note here. Yes, the D-backs won the game 1-0. They scored on a weird fielder's choice play where Dan went to second to get the force, and then Jimmy came in and scored. So once again, kind of an awkward scoring play, not your traditional home run or RBI hit. And anyway, they hold on to that 1-0 win. But Jimmy Knorp, the complete game shutout, only 3 strikeouts. That's so uncommon in this league.
Crazy.
Usually it's like strikeout or walk. We usually, I'd say, see an average from our aces between 7 and 9 Ks in the wins.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I'd say it's like 7 or 8. That's typical. 9's a little bit more rare. But 3 strikeouts only. Other than that, there was 2 groundouts, 2 pop/flyouts, and then 1 was an outfield assist where I think Dallas was caught running home on a nice play from Schema and left. So,
that was a great play.
Great play. Bang at the plate, too. Bang at the plate. We got it right, thank goodness, but it was a tough one to review. And
had to go to New York on that one.
Had to go to New York, and even New York was having trouble. But we in post-production, we do believe we got it right, so that's always good to see in the playoffs. But it's just crazy that the Eagles put the ball in play that much.
So conversely, we talked about game 1 and how Jimmy was, inches away from some fireworks there in his last pop-out. And then you look at those stats and see that the D-backs won 1-0 with Jimmy only having 3 strikeouts. So it's like, man, they were putting the ball in play too.
That's how good the D-backs defense is too.
They were there.
That speaks to the defense for sure.
And the D-backs were there, but just how close this series really was and how, quote, game of inches, it really is, right?
Yeah, it's tough. That's a tough one for Dan. I'm sure, you think you want to get an out here. Seeing the run come across. Every run that crosses that plate in the playoffs, it stinks. It hurts. It hurts a little bit different. You know what I mean? Because just how tough it is, and out after out, being down is never fun. But I'm sure it stung a little less with them being up 1 in the series. But D-backs did what they needed to do. They get the job done. They win game 2 and send it to a winner-take-all, which we always love to see on this channel.
Love it.
Nothing better than some winner-take-all wiffle ball.
Love it.
I got
some free wiffle ball. They didn't have to give it to us, but they did.
That's right. We got it. We got what we wanted. The script was in play.
Yeah.
And so we got the clash of the Titans.
Kamish really wrote this one up well.
Yeah, wrote it up real well. So game 3, Dallas goes back out there. Jimmy goes back out there again for a 3rd time, going for innings 7, 8, and 9 on the day, which is uncommon, because regular season, we don't do that.
Yeah.
But playoffs, kind of like you said, just having the chance to put your best out there. It's kind of why we have that playoff rule.
Right. I like it.
Creates that big game atmosphere a little bit more versus having to pitch Trey in this game would have been a little bit less of a cool stage. But
I agree.
Anyways, so Jim goes out there, and what do the Eagles do? They just start putting it in play. It's what they do best. Top of the first, they get 2 runs, and it's Dan. It's Dirty Dan. He's surging right now.
So happy for Dan.
He put a lot of bat on ball. He almost had a couple home runs. He didn't get rewarded at all, but he popped a few up that were just shy of the fence.
And you could tell he knew it too. Like you could tell he was getting frustrated because he knew he was all over it all day.
But Dan's a guy, he's always all over it though. Like every swing he takes, first of all, is a total home run swing. And when he, whether it's a swing and a miss or a foul ball, he was like, oh, like he lets out a grunt like, man, I should have homered on that pitch. Every time he does that, it cracks me up. It's scary as a pitcher when I used to pitch to him. But yeah, so they get 2 runs in the first, 2-0 lead for the Eagles, and then Dallas goes back to work.
Yeah.
And Dallas, on the contrary from the previous year when he started to struggle and then it all fell apart for him, this time it never got to that. He kind of was in cruise control all day long, never had to face too much adversity on the mound. Yes, he had some tough at-bats, of course. Every at-bat's tough in the playoffs.
Right.
But it was never like, oh, God, if I walk this guy or if I give up this hit in this situation, it's over.
No, he was pretty commanding.
His advantage, yeah, for sure.
He was pretty commanding the whole time, which is impressive. You know, I mean, we'll get into some of the stats a little bit later, but to do that against the Diamondbacks with Jimmy, Jonah, you know, Schema's had his hitting moments, obviously there.
Absolutely.
Pitchka's been rock solid for them this year.
Arguably their best hitter in the series.
Yeah. So I mean that it was very impressive all around what Dallas was able to do in the whole series, but especially in that game 3 with it all on the line.
All on the line.
All on the line, man.
And a chance to knock off the champs, too.
He stared right into the eyes of the champ.
He did.
And just locked him down. So,
I mean, credit
to him.
Playing the D-backs in the playoffs, you ever seen that meme where I don't even know what it's from, but I think it's some sort of anime thing, but it's like the guy, and he's like staring up at a mountain, and it's like this giant creature. You know what I mean? That's what it's like. That's what it's like. And it's so tough, and it seems like the impossible, beating Knorp in the playoffs, and they did it. And this is Dallas' stat line from the day. He threw 6 innings, including game 1 and game 2. Only 2 hits in those 2 games combined. 1 earned run, 5 walks, 13 Ks. So that's, I mean, in a postseason series against the D-backs, that's about as much as you can ask for from your pitcher.
Yeah, and he went 2 for 7 with a home run, too.
Yeah, he did it all.
That's, I mean, yeah, putting the team on his back there. I mean, it took all of them. It did take all of them.
Well, because they're all scrappy. That lineup is dangerous from top to bottom in terms of just putting balls in play and putting pressures on the defense. If the D-backs defense wasn't as solid as it is, the series could have been much more lopsided, I think.
Oh, yeah.
But there was a comment about it where it was in the first game, I think, and the Eagles had guys on, and somebody hit a shot up the middle, and Jimmy just snared it with one hand. It was like not talked about. The comments said too, like nobody acknowledged it.
Because we've seen him do it a million times, but it's still
like
incredible.
That, like nobody else is making that play besides Knorp.
No.
And even then, it just wasn't enough just because of how good Dallas was and how scrappy that offense was all day long. If my memory serves me correct, I think it was only 3 strikeouts again in that third game for Jimmy. Everything else was out via pop out, ground out, that kind of thing. So only 6 strikeouts in 6 innings there for Jimmy. That's so rare in this sport from an ace.
It's yeah, it is. It's very rare. But it's just, again, very, very well-rounded performance by the Eagles. I mean, they got the hits when they needed to. Didn't make any crucial mistakes. Really just like we've talked about before, executed a couple more times than the Diamondbacks did, and it was enough.
Yeah, big pitches, big hits.
I mean, for Jimmy to not get a hit,
I know,
in the series
you
is like,
see it. As a fan of the league, you hate to see that.
You hate to see that, but it's also like almost unpredictable. You couldn't have predicted that. You know what I mean? To do that is it probably hasn't been done before. It hasn't been done before. Without looking at the stats, I think it has not been done before in a playoff series.
We do our best to dig up some stats from time to time, but the archives aren't quite as deep as NFL, for example, or the MLB. But yeah, I don't think that's ever happened in a playoff series for Jimmy Knorp. I will say, though, to his credit, he only struck out 4 times. So he did put the ball in play 4 times, but all 4 were recorded outs.
Yeah.
He mentioned to me how his approach was to try to take that Dallas Allen drop ball to the right side of the infield, which he did pretty successfully. But Zach Whalen was just a vacuum over there, dude. He was sucking him up and getting him out at first, and 0 for 8 was the total. He was the only hitless D-back in the series. I think Pish had 2, and then 1 each for Jonah and Schema.
Yeah, the Eagles just with, like Zach Whalen's another guy, man. I just feel like has been around for so long.
Dude, he's money.
Like,
he's so good.
But he's been so consistent, and he knows his role. He's a lefty bat up there, which gives them a little bit different look at the plate. And yeah, it just makes the Eagles, they have such a good balance of the young players and the veterans, and they just very impressive.
Yeah.
Overall.
I agree. Zach is so good. He's one of those guys I think that benefits from only playing MLW wiffle ball. Like, he doesn't really play much at tournaments or other styles.
Yeah.
He's pretty much only seen pitches at the Meadows from the left side of that batter's box, and he's just money. He's so hard to get a ball past. So I was impressed. This was only the second D-back series loss of the year. It was just a sweep to the Mallards. They won every other series. They dominated the Eagles early. But I told you guys when we recorded that podcast prior to the playoffs that we kind of had to throw it out the window. The Eagles team we saw in the second half was totally different than the first half. And I wanted to speak specifically on Landon Urgitis. So he was out early with that toe injury. He had surgery in the offseason. He started off 4-5 without him. They've been 6-3 ever since. I mean, I don't know.
Difference maker for sure.
Not saying correlation equals causation, but or whatever that
remains to be seen.
The statistics term is, but I think he's been a big difference in just turning that lineup over. He's pretty money in that 4 spot. They have, in my opinion, they have the best role players. That's a bold statement. I will say that because I think I have some decent role players. The D-backs, of course, have very good role players, but guys like Waylon, Urgitis, I think even Dan now. It's kind of like Dallas and everybody else.
Yeah.
But they're all just tough outs at the plate, which is exactly what you need in this 4-man lineup era.
That's kind of where my mind goes when I'm thinking of them as like well-rounded. Like, you look at a team like, for example, the Wildcats. It's like, yeah, they're a great hitting team, and you look at all of them, and all of them can hit home runs at any given time. Like, especially their first 3, right? Like Kyle, Saylor, Jackson. Like, man, those are some aggressive hitters. And then you look at the Eagles, and you don't necessarily get as intimidated by them, but they're still just so consistent. Like, they're so evenly consistent throughout their whole lineup. And like you mentioned, with Landon being able to turn it over more and give Dallas, I would imagine, probably has their highest average on their team. Maybe even Waylon. But
Dallas has been
give him more opportunities, you know. It's huge.
Yeah. Enough said. They earned it. And I do think that on that given day, the better team won. I mean, the Eagles, it was bang bang right there, but I think the Eagles have had the better second half than the D-backs. They've been the hottest team, I would say, going into this postseason, kind of them and the Preds on the AL, Eagles on the NL side. And they deserved it. I was happy for them. Once again, it's tough to see the D-backs lose. I think a lot of fans fall in love with watching Jimmy play in the playoffs. A lot of people probably wanted to see him in Atlanta, but it's exciting. And we talk about the parity so much in this league, but yet Jimmy always found a way. Well, wasn't the case this year.
Yeah. I mean, are we bad? Are we bad wiffle ball analysts for not any of us picking the Eagles?
I don't think so, Jack. I'm trying to get Dallas on the call here, but I don't think so. Like I said, you'd be a bad analyst to pick against Knorp in the playoffs. I mean, you can't predict that to happen.
Yeah, but you just said you were like they were the hottest team coming in. You felt like they were the better team.
Look at the D-backs last year. The D-backs were 5-10 and then still went on to win the whole thing. It's like, how do you pick against that guy? True. Or those guys, I should say.
That is true.
So I knew it would be close. I said it would be close. I think my prediction overall was pretty good, besides the winner. I said it would be closer than you guys think it would be. I knew they were hot. I said Landon would be a big factor, and I kind of called Daniel and Pish the X factors. I thought Pish contributed a lot. Like I said, he had the most hits on the D-backs, only 2, but he's the most in the squad. And Dan had a couple RBIs in that deciding game. So I feel like my analysis was actually pretty good. I just thought the D-backs would finish on top and not the Eagles.
Yep.
But overall, I was happy with my analysis.
Good.
Because I watched it back recently when I edited it. So, but let's get Dallas in here right now. And Jack, before we get into it with Dallas, I want to ask you real quick as he loads into this call. Little new segment here we want to test out. Some overreactions in MLW. Watching this series and thinking about what's ahead for everybody, what's an overreaction you think that you have moving forward?
Overreaction, I would say the Diamondbacks dynasty is officially over.
Wow.
Not because they lost this series, but because they lost their guy Schema.
Yeah.
In retirement.
Definitely the end of an era.
These guys have been the trio of Knorp, Heath, and Schema. They've been around, since the Diamondbacks have had success. We've talked about their chemistry and their defense so often on this podcast. I think it like obviously an overreaction, but I do think replacing Schema and overall just how he gels with that squad is going to be very challenging for the Diamondbacks. And I think it will take some getting used to, and they'll kind of have to reframe, how their team gels, how their team connects.
Yeah, I agree. Whether it's a dynasty or not, you got to say it's the end of an era.
Yeah.
Sure. And we'll talk about Schema when Dallas is off the phone. But I agree. That's a bit of an overreaction. But, I mean, hey, they lost. We didn't think we'd see it.
That's true.
It was hard. I mean, Jimmy said that he thought they would win this whole thing. I think a lot of people at home did too, despite the records. You throw all that out in the playoffs.
You throw it out.
You got to throw it out. And it's tough to bet against Jim. So I wouldn't say other people aren't thinking the same thing. Like, man, is this it? Like, a 3-peat really solidifies you like as a dynasty.
Yeah.
2 is still really good, especially in this league, but 3 would have been the benchmark to be cemented in history forever and ever and ever. So they fell short. You got to give credit to the Eagles.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give them, the Diamondbacks, credit. I think 2 in a row in modern MLW.
It's
kind of qualifies as a dynasty.
Insane.
But until someone else bests it.
Yeah. I think if I had to overreact to something, I think it'd be along those same lines, just saying that maybe Jimmy's peaked at the plate.
He's peaked?
I don't know. He didn't have as good of a year as he had in the past.
Yeah.
It really stuck out in this series.
What was his average?
I don't know what his final numbies were, but I know his average wasn't as high as before. He mentioned that to me before the playoffs started.
Oh, I think he, in our final series, was joking with me because I had more home runs than him on the year, which is pretty incredible.
So, I don't know. We've seen a lot of young talent come into this league and succeed, but we've also seen some guys that are older succeed, like Jordan and Grant. So, has Jim peaked? I'm going to say if I had to overreact, yeah, I think maybe he has. I don't know. We'll see, guys. But I just think that he has the quality of at-bats that I saw from him in this series were shockingly not as good, I think, as what I saw in the past. I saw Jimmy striking out this year on a lot of pitches that were very similar. I think he knows it's his weakness, but the inside screw drop, inside two-seam, inside drop ball thing, really he struggled with this year. And that's not like him to not adjust.
Yeah.
I noticed that as a pattern. So that's kind of the reason why I'm saying I think maybe he has peaked at the plate. But hard to bet against Jimmy Knorp, so we'll see.
Can't wait for him to prove you wrong.
He probably will. He'll be laughing when he knocks me out of the playoffs.
And then you're going to have to buy a Get Knorp shirt.
I'm never going to buy Knorp shirts. But I do support him. And you guys should buy it if you're a Knorp fan. But enough talk about the D-backs. Enough talk about the dynasty ending. Now we got the man who's ended it all. And his name is Dallas Allen. Dallas, how are we feeling? You're the big man on campus right now.
Oh, Tom, I'm over the world right now. I feel amazing, especially when that series came out. It was really fun to watch it. In Pennsylvania, I mean, we had Fan Fest right there, and I clicked on that video right away. I was so excited to watch it.
Did you interrupt the Fan Fest just to sit down and watch your own video?
Well, luckily, Fan Fest didn't start till 4:15, so I was kind of like skipping through each play, like kind of where I knew like good things would happen.
You wanted to see the good moments.
Would you say, Dallas, that series win was the highlight of your career so far?
Yeah, for sure. Especially since that's my first playoff series win. I've came up short in 2021 and 2022, both times in the NLDS. So making the NLCS was a very big goal in mind for my 2023 season.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's impressive. Dallas, I believe that was also your first ever series win over the D-backs in the Knorp as the captain, Dallas Allen being drafted era, so 2021 and on. I believe they beat you in the one and only meeting in 2021, and they beat you guys twice last year, both late in the regular season and then again in the playoffs. This year they took it to you guys in Detroit, so this is your 5th try, and it was the charm apparently. But congratulations.
5th time's a charm.
5th time's a charm for the Eagles in Dallas.
What does that feel like for you after, like Tommy just mentioned, trying against these guys and failing over and over again to beat them, to finally break through? It's such a big series in the playoffs. Like, what did that feel like post game?
I'll say like the first couple of series, except for series when we got swept, like I felt like we were so close, like to getting them, and then we go to Detroit and we just get absolutely destroyed by them. I'm like, oh my god, are we ever gonna beat these guys? But I did have a little bit of like confidence coming into the series, like because I wanted to beat them so bad. Like it just sucks when you play a team and you feel like you can't beat them. I just wanted to beat them so bad, and it felt so good to do that.
That's the Knorp effect. Did that, like, coming down from that, is that almost like a World Series of its own? Like, when you accomplish that, it's probably hard to refocus. Like, all right, another series now, because that's like the mountain. Beating Jimmy has been the benchmark, and you guys did it. Stole my thunder. I wanted to do it, but
what I kind of compare that to is Michigan beating Ohio State in 2021. Like, it had been so long since they did it, and it was finally like a sigh of relief to finally get that win. It's kind of what I compare it to. So yeah, I did kind of feel like our World Series there, but obviously the job is not done yet.
Not done yet. Not done yet. You got a tough matchup in your next series. Probably the best team in the league by far. You got to play. So I will say, though, I don't want to hijack this interview, but I realized, Jack, that I think this may have been a good thing for us because I realized that I'm not an ego guy. I swear I'm not. I consider myself to be very level-headed and probably one of the more mature guys in the league in that regard.
That's what every guy with an ego says.
Okay, no, well, listen, this proved it to me. I realized that I was at fault because when I was like driving home from the Meadows that day, I felt a sense of disappointment. Like, God, I wanted to be the guy to beat Knorp.
Oh, wow.
And I realized like that's a problem.
Yeah,
like, I shouldn't have felt like that.
He's so far in your head.
Yeah, he was definitely living rent free in my head. Just like 100%.
Real estate
so
planted.
I realized then, like as time passed, 24 hours, 48 hours after the series had finished up in real time, I was like, you know what? I think this is good for us because I can't go out there being an egomaniac trying to beat this guy.
Yeah.
So Dallas, thank you. I think you may have helped me.
You're welcome, Dom.
Look at that. People helping people.
People helping people.
Dallas, you mentioned like feeling confident going into this series. Do you think that was different this series compared to, let's say, last year's playoff series, just going into it, kind of like your attitude or feeling overall in the Eagles locker room?
Yeah, last year was a little different because we started out so hot and then kind of fell off, and I was still pretty confident going into this series, but ever after that game 2 inning 1, it just all my confidence fell apart, especially even heading into this 2023 season. But the fact this year is that we were hot coming into this D-Back series. We'd swept the Cobras, beat the Gators, beat the Wildcats. Like, we'd won 3 series straight. So I did have a lot of confidence I could throw strikes and put the bat on the ball.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, what do you think the difference was in sort of the 2 different tales that this Eagles season has been? As you mentioned, it was ugly at first, but now you've won 3 straight. Can you sort of pinpoint, you think, what the shift in energy was or what the turning point was for you guys?
Yeah, obviously the 1-5 start was way less than ideal than what we wanted, but we were kind of texting the group chat after that Diamondbacks game at Wayne State. We were kind of like, you know what? The D-backs last year started what did they start? They started 2-7 last year.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, we can do the same. Like, we can do exactly what they did. All we have to do is bounce back and win a couple series and make our way into the playoffs, not even for the 1 seed. But like you said earlier in the podcast, records are 0-0 once you get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Nothing before matters as long as you get there. So that kind of helped us, especially with the momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen you guys kind of try to solidify a second arm on your team this year. Blades sort of stepped up as that guy. Tommy and I were kind of talking about this earlier on the podcast, and we wanted to ask you if you know whether or not that decision to go with Blade in game 2 was a predetermined one, or was that something that was determined after the outcome of game 1? You know, you guys had already won. And so was Dan more willing to put him out then? Or do you think if you guys lost game 1 that you probably would have went back out game 2?
So a lot of what our pitching determines on is how beat up the ball is. So Blade is more used to that game 2 ball after game 1 when it's more beat up. I'm a lot better and a lot more consistent with the new ball, which is game 1 and game 3. So I would say yes, that it was predetermined that Blade was going to start game 2 no matter the outcome of game 1. It obviously the ball's gonna get more beat up after game 1, but 2, we've seen in the past that guys, obviously it's worked for multiple teams, like riding the same guy out for 3 games, but sometimes letting the hitters get a different look and a different arm kind of can like some guys will see somebody really well, but then you bring a different guy in, and then it's a whole different arm slot, whole different arsenal. So it's kind of just to give another guy a look. Plus, we want to put the guy who's going to throw the most strikes out there.
That would have been bold. Yeah. If that would have been bold,
it would
have did that. But and do you know, Dallas? Do you think the D-backs would have pitched Flood if they had won the first game instead of you guys?
Good question.
I mean, I don't know how Jimmy feels about like putting Trey out there. I don't know how much he trusts him. Obviously, Trey was the all-star game starter for the National League, so I'm sure Jimmy did have trust in Trey. But I could see so. I feel like Jimmy didn't want to put Trey out there and say they lose that game as well, and he's looking back and saying, "Oh man, I should have pitched game 2 because I have more confidence in myself." I'm sure he has tons of confidence in Trey. Don't get me wrong, but I think Jimmy would want to get the job done if he had to.
Okay,
he had the chance.
Yeah, I will say, I think the Blade thing definitely helped you guys. You looked untouchable in that third game, and I think a lot of it was because of the D-backs seeing a different look. I know I've talked about it pretty openly, how I think switching the looks as a manager, putting out their different arms in a big series like this, I think can really help change the hitters' eye levels and give you an advantage. So I'm preparing my guys for this series to see both Dallas and Blade. I said in the group chat, I was like, be ready for Blade game 2, probably no matter what. If we beat them, it'll probably be Blade. If we lose, it'll probably be Blade.
Yeah.
Either way. So I got everybody prepared watching both Dallas Allen film and Blade Walker film.
That's good prep.
So good prep. Mm-hmm. We're getting ready for you, Dal.
You're doing too good of a job, Tom.
Doing the best to do my job. And what do you think the keys are to this series? I mean, what do you think of us as an opponent? You guys dominated us last year, but this season we came out on top on opening day. What do you think the keys are looking forward to 2 weeks from now?
I've said it a lot, and I know it's like a baseball saying, a football saying, but if you throw strikes and you put the bat on the ball, good things are going to happen. If you walk guys, and then you say you give up a home run there, that's 2, 3, 4 runs instead of even if you let up a home run, it's only 1 run. So my biggest thing in this series is to command the zone, especially on the mound. Like if I throw strikes, I feel confident enough that we can put the bat on the ball as well, and even if maybe the Mallards get a couple home runs or something like that, I feel like we can do the same as well. So my biggest thing coming into this series is command the zone and hit my spots.
I'll give you guys props, though. A lot of mentioned how Jack, like, this is a World Series of its own, beating them, its own mountain to climb. But in that post-game interview right away, the Eagles were Mallards next. They were job's not finished, which is cool to see after beating a team like the D-backs and a player like Jimmy Knorp. So right then and there, I was behind the camera. I said, "It's game time now, boys. It's on."
Absolutely.
Wasn't the opponent I thought I'd get, candidly speaking. And like I said, a few hours later, I realized it may have been a blessing because I think I was in my head too much about playing Jimmy and trying to beat Jimmy. But definitely there was some surprised faces in our Mallards group chat when I texted everybody saying that we're playing the Eagles, not the D-backs.
I was surely surprised.
Of course, I think the whole league was. I told you, everyone was like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
How did the D-backs lose? But it was just a great overall team effort, I think.
Were you surprised, Dallas?
Be honest.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. Obviously, playoff Jimmy is very tough to bet against.
How do you keep that guy hitless? How'd you approach him?
How do I approach Jimmy? Getting ahead in the count is huge, and kind of mixing up pitches as much as possible is definitely the best thing to do. You don't want to stick with one pitch because a team will just roll over that pitch. Like if I just threw my drop ball the whole game, I'd let up 7 runs easily. But
I don't know. It's tough pitch to hit.
Attacking Jimmy is just changing up everything in the arsenal and just keep him guessing. You gotta outthink the hitter. Think about what they're thinking is coming and kind of mix it around of that.
Speaking of Jimmy, let's go back to game 1. You go at him with 2 outs, and he's the winning run at the plate. Was that a team decision, a Dallas decision? What was the conversation like with manager Dirty Daniel Schultz prior to that at bat?
I'll say this: there was never a doubt I was walking Jimmy there, especially with Jonah Heath up to.
Wait, never a doubt you were walking him or were not walking him?
I was never walking Jimmy.
Never walking him.
With Jonah up to bat, and Jonah has good history against me hitting. There was no way I was putting Jimmy on. I was like, you know what? If you got to beat him. I'm going to Jimmy.
That's kind of what I said when we were talking about it.
It is. 100%.
I was saying that, you know, in that situation, it's like you want to be the guy to break through, right, and overcome what has been the known in the past, you know, 2 seasons now plus. So
yeah, I'll say if Jimmy did hit a 3-run bomb there, and I said I'll pitch to him, that would have looked really bad on camera. But I'm very happy Jimmy did not indeed do that.
I mean, that's what fans expect to see, though, that quote in that moment, and then Jimmy take the next pitch deep.
Oh yeah,
they expect to see that, but you outdid him there, and props to you. Not saying you're like the better player now than Jimmy is. Me and Jack just did some overreactions where I was talking about that sort of thing, but yeah. It's cool. It's always cool to see the underdog in this. Dallas is a great player, but seeing the underdog prevail is always cool in sports.
It's great in sports. Yeah. You love to see it in sports.
You absolutely love to see it. You love to see the Bears beat the Commanders on a Thursday.
You'd love to. you absolutely love to. Honestly, as a Lions fan, we've been the underdogs for so long now. I don't know what to do with myself going in all these games like favorite. Really it doesn't make any sense.
I'm used to having to turn it off in the second quarter.
Yeah.
It's just so bad.
Yeah.
And now I'm turning it off in the second quarter because we're up by 30, not because we're down by 30. It's so weird. But
no, I'll never turn it off.
Never turn it off. Yeah, just congratulations, Dallas. Really proud of you and the Eagles. You guys are the youngest team in the league, and Dan's built a great squad, and I'm sure it feels good. So enjoy it. Enjoy the moment, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. We'll see if we can knock that smile off your guys' face.
I really hope you don't, Tom. Don't crush my hopes and dreams
hey,
going to Atlanta.
We love a good series. But I want to go to Atlanta too, Dallas. I mean, come on.
Yep.
We brought you into this world. I'm going to take you out. Take you out, Dallas.
It's going to be a great series, that's for sure.
We should go back and find
expect the series to go to Game 3.
That could be a cool.
Who would win in a brawl?
The Eagles or Mallards?
Yeah.
Wow.
Let's say we put the wiffle balls and the wiffle ball bats away, and it was just fists.
Just fists. Wow. Well, Jack, I've never been a fighter. I will say that.
And
I think I would struggle to.
You do have a fully grown man on your team.
I do, but look at Dallas's face. Could you hit that face?
No, it'd be tough. I'd have to go body shot probably. It'd be tough to hit him in the face.
It would definitely be tough to hit him in the face. Dan's feisty, but I can't see Dan getting after it too much. I can't imagine it being too good of a fight. I feel like it'd be a bit of a...
No, it would be a pillow fight for sure.
Yeah, I think it would be.
I don't know. I feel like Robles would just, his competitive spirit would take over, and he would just,
I'd like to be scared to throw a punch. I'd look over and see Robles just going crazy. I'd be like,
taking on 2 Eagles at one time. I guess
we're doing this.
Yeah.
Hopefully we never have a brawl in MLW, but funny theory.
That would be a good video, though.
Funny. That'd be good clickbait.
That would be very good clickbait.
But in theory, it would be funny. But Dallas, once again, congratulations. Look forward to playing you in a couple weeks, and we'll see you then.
All right.
Thanks, dude.
Thanks for coming on the show. Always a pleasure having you. Round of applause for him. All right. Thanks again to Dallas Allen. And it is now time to get into this week's comment of the week. And it's a short and sweet one from Bill Bush. And he says, as a grown man, I'm embarrassed at how sad I was over the outcome. And I got to say, Bill, there's no shame in that.
No.
That's why we play the games.
That's why we play the games.
We play the games. We want to inspire fans that are passionate and want to see their teams win.
You should be sad.
Absolutely.
You absolutely. If you're not sad, that's embarrassing.
I was impressed to see, and honestly happy to see. It's cool to see how invested everybody is in the players and in the personalities of this league and the guys that make up MLW. But I expected to scroll down the comments, and the first thing to see, the most comments like, "Oh my God, the D-backs lost. Dallas did it. What a game." Blah blah blah. But most of the attention went to Michael Schema and the retirement, which I thought was cool.
That is cool.
I think it's really cool, and I hope he reads them. All the kind words everybody said about how great of a career he had, what a good dude he is, how cool their friendship has been on that team. End of an era, like we said, but I just thought that was interesting to see in the comment section. Not what I expected to see at all.
That is cool. I didn't get a chance yet to flip through the comments, but should be noted, should be shouted out that Michael's had a great career. He's always been a pleasure to be around in every interaction I've had with him. That whole team really, and. Yeah, he will be missed. You could tell in the post game speech it was emotional for him too.
Yeah, for sure.
So you hate to see people who contribute so much to the channel and the program have to leave, but it's life. It is what it is. And yeah, wish him the best of luck. Can't wait to see what's in store for him.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll keep in touch. I know him and Jimmy and Jonah and that whole group will stay friends forever. But like you said, yeah, you saw some emotion there. And I think it's a combination of things. It's getting older and figuring out where you want to dedicate your time and what hobbies you want to spend time on and that sort of thing. And I think he's not only sad about retiring from MLW, but you realize about just chapters of your life that end, whether it's playing football with his friends or, spending time coming out and watching games or traveling on MLW trips and that sort of thing. And I'm sure a part of him still really wants to do that, but he's got other things to do now, whether it's school, work, family life. He has a girlfriend. So just things like that force you to make tough decisions in life. So never be upset about him for it. It sucks. You saw how upset he was. And I think he was kind of on the fence about coming back this year, gave it another shot, and was still a big factor in that DX team.
Absolutely.
And I think he's
always will be.
Always will be. And we're going to miss him.
Retire 31?
Retire 31. 100%.
He's 31, right?
Put it in the rafters.
We should retire 31.
Put it in the rafters. I'm not opposed to it at all. Schema's been through a lot, and he's been a really good guy, good friend, and I wouldn't have wanted anybody else playing shortstop in the D-backs the last few years. That's for sure.
No.
So glad to see him get the love. I was also glad, too, to see him, even though I'm sure it was tough to kind of find those words and to talk about it so candidly, I was sort of glad he did that in the video like that. I think it caught Kyle off guard a little bit. Mm-hmm. But if he would have did that in the offseason, he probably wouldn't have gotten as good of a spotlight and as big of an audience to see that moment and to have the opportunity to share those words. Sure, maybe like an Instagram post with a quote or maybe a video that he posted. But I asked Jimmy if he knew who's going to do that post game if they lost, and he said no, he didn't. I didn't know he'd like break it right then and there. But I think, like I said, I think it was cool for him to have his moment, to get that round of applause, and then for the comment section to be filled. After an incredible playoff series and the biggest upset in recent history, the comment section is all, we're going to miss Schema. That's pretty cool. I think.
That is cool. I wasn't like expecting that at all. But I agree with you. I think it's very cool that he was able to have a little platform there to do it on. Well deserved.
So yeah, thanks again to Michael Schema for all his time and efforts and dedication to this League of the Year. Represented us so well. It's been an absolute pleasure having him. We'll probably interview him on the pod, hopefully. If he's down to do it, I'd be happy to have him on the show this offseason sometimes. We actually were going to have him on earlier this year, and then schedules didn't work out, but it'd be cool to talk with him this winter season if he's available and up to it. So we'll give him the opportunity. If he wants to come on, we'd gladly have him. But overall, just a day full of highlights from the Eagles winning, Schema retiring, Jimmy losing just as big as the Eagles winning.
Yep.
And now it sets up a pretty exciting matchup of the Mallards-Eagles opening day rematch in 2 weeks here. So Hype. We got the ALDS this Friday. You guys already saw our predictions in the last video. All three of us, again, took the Preds. So all three of us went D-backs. All three of us were wrong. All three of us, me being me, Jack, Jimmy, took the Preds.
Yep.
We'll see if the Wildcats can shock the world.
We'll see. Based on what's happened so far, we're probably
in for a treat. And I'm excited for you guys to all experience that series once again this Friday at 4 p.m. And, of course, we do have the World Series being played live in person in Atlanta. Tickets being sold. I'll have it linked in the description below if you are unaware of that. But we'd love to see a ton of you guys out there. And it's going to be an epic day for MLW and for the sport of wiffle ball. So we're very excited for that. Jack, thanks for coming over. Thanks again to Dallas for coming on the show this week. RJ Walgate is now 6'6" officially. We'll see you all next Tuesday. Pipe it up.